Have you ever wanted to explore the worlds of genealogy and evolutionary science by braving the unknown wilds and all its dangerous inhabitants, discovering beneficial mutations and power through mortal combat to ultimately defeat the evil king who has been stealing the most precious resource from your world by feasting on the limbs of your vanquished enemies and attract a multitude of mating partners? Well, then I have a game for you. Cubivore, Survival of the Fittest, is an action/evolution simulator released for the Nintendo Gamecube in February of 2004. It was developed by Saru Brunei, a short-lived studio mostly known for, well, not much else really, because they were disbanded less than a year from this first release. Nintendo handled the publishing duties in Japan, and due to the odd nature of the game, really had no plans to release it anywhere else. That's until Atlas stepped up and did the translations themselves for a North American launch in November of the same year. Your adventure starts out as a newly born primal Mighty Might Piggy Cube, with only one objective: to live long enough to defeat your foes and become the king of the Cubivores. As you take your first brave steps, flops, around your new environment, you discover things to eat so you can build up your health, and enemies to fight to increase your skills. After winning your first animal encounter, you discover mutations. By defeating an enemy, then ripping off its limbs and consuming them, you gain the ability to change your color and body style. Yeah, it sounds a bit gruesome, but Mother Nature can be quite harsh. While on the surface the game looks fairly simplistic, it's in the mutations mechanic that gives Cubivore some serious depth. In all, there is 150 different mutations that you can discover. Progression is handled by combat. Your Cubivore can only attack when the target has one more limb or less than you do. So if you're in a spot where you have one limb and you try to attack a 3-limb Cubivore, you just can't, as it is too powerful for you to handle. While you can occasionally mutate from defeating enemies and eating off their ripped limbs, the bulk of the mutations you collect comes from the mating mechanic. After defeating a stage boss, you will get a piece of raw meat from them. Consuming this raw meat allows you to enter the Tunnel of Love. The number of mates you can attract correlates to the amount of love bits that you have picked up. Love bits are little heart-shaped pickups scattered throughout the world. So the more love bits you collect on a stage, the more females you can attract for mating in the love tunnel. After successfully mating, your Cubivore dies. But that's not game over. With death comes regeneration, as you can choose a new mutated offspring to play as through the next level. The less time you think about the mating habits of Cubivores, the better. Trust me. Your offspring retains all the skills and mutations that you have acquired in the past life, as a sort of generational knowledge. So your new life basically just continues from where you left off pre-Cubie hanky-panky, just with more limbs and possible mutations. The additional limbs can have their own colors, and this is where the complexity of the game really ramps up. Your battle stats, attacks, and special powers are greatly affected by the color or colors of your limbs. There are 5 colors in total. Blue will give you a greater attack range, but lowers your defense. Red allows you to jump higher and longer, but your attack power is weakened. Yellow boosts both your attack and defense, but your movement speed suffers greatly. Purple gives you more movement speed and dexterity, but that's about it. And gray, which is the most balanced. Not as a powerful attack as yellow, but none of the weaknesses of the other. It's basically the balanced spec of the game. In addition, there are 5 different saturation levels for each color, ranging from the lowest value called Pale, working up the stat boost gradually through Pale Dark, Dark, Clash, and finally the most boosted stats at Rage. The limb color and saturations can be mixed and matched to suit your playstyle. You can kind of think of it as your armor and weapon spec in any standard RPG type game. The sheer number of mutations to collect and the insane amount of color combinations make this a highly replayable game, which is good because even at a leisurely pace you can get through the story in about 8 hours. And the plot is really as basic as you can get. You kill things, survive, grow stronger, and mate. Rinse and repeat. But it is all presented using a fairly comical diary-style monologue. It's rather charming in its almost childlike simplicity when juxtaposed to the rather savage action of the gameplay. Cubivore began development as a release for the ill-fated 64DD, or disk drive expansion peripheral for the Nintendo 64. It was a removable disc-based add-on to the system, adding more storage capacity, a modem to connect to a Nintendo managed service provider, and an internal real-time clock. But the 64DD flopped hard in Japan, selling only 15,000 units, and was discontinued in just over a year, and never being released outside of Japan. The add-on only saw 10 titles released, with most of them just being Mario Paint related. After the 64DD's demise, many of the titles that had originally started developing for it were either stripped down for release on the base N64, or just cancelled outright. Sarah Brunei started working on stripping Cubivore down for the N64, but as they were nearing completion, the Gamecube was announced. So Cubivore was quickly reworked to be an early Gamecube release. Even though it was released on more powerful hardware, due to the quick turnaround time, the graphics were only slightly tweaked from the original N64 builds. Most notably, the cubes got rounded edges, a slight increase in some of the textures, and the Cubivore in the intro had its head changed from an N64 logo to a GameCube one. But it still takes a big dump in the middle of your screen in the intro. While making a game out of the concept of fighting, eating, and mating to mutate your vaguely animalistic-looking cube firmly puts Cubivore into the weird category, the upbeat script and complex mutation mechanics stack up to make it a whole lot of fun. Thanks for watching.
You did it. The weighted companion cube certainly brought you good luck. However, it cannot accompany you for the rest of the test and, unfortunately, must be euthanized.